Hello, welcome to Forgotten by Time. This is the very last episode. Unfortunately, I'll be graduating very soon, and, with that, we'll have to come a close to a podcast, but thankfully, I can get to it. I will try my best to, I don't know, make something happen where you can keep up to date. I don't know. Eventually, I'll get something in case you really do miss me. But I really want to thank everybody who's watched this, listened to it, everything I did with Dylan before he graduated, and what we both did was we tried to build a story here. We talk about cool, creepy stories. Not just because, they're cool, but we want to teach. We want to have people learn about things you might not have known. Like, granted, a lot of the stories we did thorough research, but I genuinely didn't know a lot of the stories he told me, and he didn't know a lot of the stories I knew. So we both were kind of teaching each other stuff as we were going, and I really want to thank him for teaching me about all these cool things that now I know about. And we were able to produce a video. So, Dylan, I don't know if you are going to hear this or not, but thank you so much for doing this with me. Anyways, let's talk about some tornadoes. We have three different parts for the video. Two of them are spooky stories, and the other one is just something that I find really upsetting and kind of controversial. So we're going to be talking about the last ES5 to ever have been recorded in history. That's the Moore, Oklahoma tornado, along with some controversial EF4s and under whenever we get to them. So let's talk about the last EF5 in Moore, Oklahoma back in 2013. So, what exactly happened? The 2013 Moore tornado was a large and extremely violent EF5 tornado that ravaged Moore, Oklahoma, and areas around there on May 20th, 2013, with about 200 to 210 miles per hour. It killed 24 people, plus two indirect fatalities, and injuring 200 plus others. This tornado was a part of a larger outbreak from a moving weather system that had produced several other tornadoes across the Great Plains over the previous 2 days, including five that had struck central Oklahoma in the day prior on May 19th, along with 2011's Phil Campbell Hackleburg and El Reno Piedmont tornadoes in 2011. Those tornadoes have the highest rated official wind speed on the enhanced Fujita scale, if the upper range is considered. The tornado touched down just northwest of Newcastle at 2:56 p.m. Central Time and quickly became violent, persisting for about 39 minutes on a 13-plus mile path through heavily populated sections of Moore, causing catastrophic damage of EF4 and EF5 intensity before it dissipated at 3:35 Central Daylight Time outside of Moore. The tornado was about a mile or more at its peak width. The 2013 tornado followed a roughly similar track to the deadlier 1999 Bridge Creek Moore tornado, which was rated EF5. Neither of the stricken schools in the area had acquired purpose-built storm shelters in the intervening years. So in 2013, a central upper trough moved eastward through the central United States, with the lead upper low pivoting over the Dakotas and upper Midwest. A southern stream shortwave trough and moderately strong polar jet moved east-northeast over the southern Rockies to the southern Great Plains. Now, any storm that you get that comes from the Rockies, that comes from the West Coast, so California, any storm really that moves over the Rockies will probably bring some nasty severe weather. But if it comes from like up north, it'll probably be cold weather. I'm saying up north, like Canada. The Great Plains and Ozark regions was affected by this area, with severe thunderstorms forming during the peak hours of heating. With influence of moderately strong cyclonic flow aloft, the air mass was becoming unstable across most of the southern Great Plains, Ozark, and Mississippi Valley by the afternoon hours. The thunderstorm that produced the tornado developed less than an hour after the tornado watch was issued at around 2 p.m. Central Time across northern Grady County. Its rapid intensification resulted in the NWS issuing a severe thunderstorm warning for northern Grady, northern Cleveland, northern McLean, and southwestern Oklahoma counties, including the Oklahoma City area. At 2:12 in northwestern McLean County near Long Drive, roughly 4.4 miles northwest of downtown Newcastle, this storm formed. Initially, it was a narrow rope-shaped tornado. It caused some minor damage, EF1 damage, to a home and some trees before crossing SH 37 and rapidly intensifying as it struck a semi-rural subdivision where several homes were destroyed and two of which were hit with EF4 level intensity. That's crazy. Okay, so it went from EF1, right? You know, a little rope tornado, to causing EF4 damage. Now, this happened in the course of 2 minutes, forming into a large stovepipe tornado. That's crazy. Okay, so in 2 minutes, it went from a little rope. It looked fragile from what I saw from the images. It looked fragile, but then it came in and said it's going to be intense. So it turned into a stovepipe, which you can look up. They're pretty wide if you don't know what they look like. It matured further into a barrel shape, and I'm sure we know what a barrel looks like. A debris ball grew around the funnel itself as it finally evolved into a large wedge-shaped structure. Slight ground scouring began in this area. Now, that usually happens with strong tornadoes. It sucks up the grass in certain parts and it has little loops because the tornado isn't just a consistent tornado, it's built of smaller vortices that rotate around in a core tornado. So the rotating of it caused the ground to scour. The National Weather Service issued a second, more strongly worded warning for the area at 3:01 p.m., updating the tornado warning into a tornado emergency. I believe that was one of the first uses of the tornado emergency. I could be wrong, and I can look at it later and update you guys in the comments if I find out anything later about it. OKC and more was a hotspot for tornadoes and storm spotters. So the it detected some NEXRAD radars do, detected a tornado debris signature. So that's basically how you know a tornado is formed on a map. When the CC drops, I believe it is, you get the damage. You get to see the debris signature. That's how you know a tornado is in progress. Usually it's like bluish, pops up as a blue color on the map, and it can be big or it could be a little tiny one, but even then, even if it's small, take it seriously. It had a hook echo, which is basically a swirl. I like to call it a swirl, where it curls around from the storm, and it'll be still rotating, so the downdrafts will make the tornado come down. This happened in northern Cleveland County. The supercell also produced straight line winds of 80 miles per hour for at least 1 mile due to surrounding tornadic circulation. The tornado maintained its intensity as it struck the Orr family farm in Celestial Aces horse stable. 100 horses were reported killed, some being tossed into entangled and downed power lines or thrown on top of nearby buildings. Several horses that survived had severe injuries, with some being impaled by tree limbs or I don't want to talk about that. That's just disturbing. I knew we were gonna get dark with this tornado, but oh heavens, that is not good. I know death is never good, but just imagine seeing that. I don't know. I don't want to think about that. So we're gonna move on. It was hit with EF4 intensity. The ground on the property was scoured to bare soil. Debris from structures was granulated, and vehicles were thrown and stripped down to their frames. The tornado was likely an EF5 intensity, though the construction quality of the affected building only permitted an EF4. A 10-ton propane tank from the Orr family farm property was picked up and thrown more than a half mile through the air by a tornado. 10 tons. A ton, I'm pretty sure, is like 1,000 pounds. So a 10,000-pound propane tank, mind you, was just picked up and thrown half a mile away. That's scary. And imagine that hit someone. Oh Lord. Um, Briarwood Elementary School was completely destroyed. The NWS originally rated the EF5, but further evaluation in a 2014 study by the AMS revealed evidence of poor construction at the school, and the rating was downgraded to EF4. Remarkably, no fatalities occurred at the school. Two 12,000-gallon water tanks were also swept off the Orr family grounds and was thrown into the area. Oh my gosh. Okay, so this Orr family farm, oh, they had two different things, a 10-ton propane tank and 12,000-gallon water tanks. Oh my gosh. Wow. Briarwood Elementary School was hit by one of these by one of these water jet by one of the water tanks. Sorry, I can't speak for some reason. Past the elementary school, the tornado intensified even further and entered densely populated areas just west of Moore, including the Westmore subdivision, where many well-built, anchor-bolted brick homes were flattened at EF4 intensity, and two were swept clean from their foundations. Damage was rated EF5. Then the tornado destroyed Plaza Towers Elementary School at EF4 intensity, where 7 children were killed when a cinder block collapsed on them. Cinder block wall, sorry. 7 children died because of this. That's crazy. Now, I don't know exactly death rates because of natural disasters at schools, but that's pretty messed up. I mean, I don't know exactly, aside from humans harming other humans at schools. I have a feeling that's like one of the deadliest thing, like natural disasters, for it to have happened at school. And what they do is they get put against the wall. So imagine doing that, but still 7 souls were lost because of this tornado. The tornado was likely violent, as lawns in the area were completely scoured down to bare soil. Entire blocks of homes were destroyed, flattened. Trees were debarked and denuded. Vehicles were thrown and mangled. The ground was severely scoured in other areas nearby. The damage was rated EF4. But nobody in a building at the hospital, at the Moore Medical Center, was damaged, but no one was hurt. So thank you for that. So thankfully that happened. That no one got hurt, obviously. The center staff had to replace 30 patients to a hospital in Norman, so they moved them over where it would be safe. Part of I-35 was shut down due to debris that had been thrown onto the freeway. On May 21st, Moore still didn't have running water. Over 61,500 power outages happened due to the tornado. More than 100 people were rescued from areas that sustained significant damage from the tornado. On the morning of May 21st, the medical examiner's office incorrectly stated that 91 bodies of tornado victims had been received. Holy smokes. I know I said incorrectly, so mind that, but To think 91 possible. They thought 91 dead people died. It would be dropped to 51, but later confirmed to be only 24. Now, that's still 25. So, that's a sharp decrease from 91. That is crazy. So, anyways, they had 25 deaths. Two deaths occurred in a house, and I have to talk about this. A 90-year-old woman who suffered a fractured skull during the tornado died shortly after. On May 6th, 2018, nearly 5 years after the tornado, a 14-year-old survivor who suffered PTSD after losing seven of his friends at Plaza Towers Elementary School committed self-delete. That's just, no, that's sad. So this kid had PTSD because he lost his friends. He lost seven of his friends. That's just tragic. No, I'm not gonna try to beat around it. Imagine you lose seven of your friends. I know I'd be severely depressed if I lost seven of my closest friends. But I, I don't know. I guess he had survivor's guilt. That also might have led to PTSD. Sometimes when a survivor of some, we'll say for example, something like this happens, people get severe stress, anxiety, and all that because they feel like they shouldn't have survived. It's called survivor's guilt, which is a real thing. The 2013 Moore tornado was the deadliest tornado recorded in the U.S. since Joplin, Missouri. That killed 158 people. So, since we talked about Moore, Oklahoma, let's real quickly talk about Joplin, just in case you don't know what happened over in Joplin. So, in the 2011 Joplin tornado, also referred to as the Joplin EF5, the tornado touched down in Newton County, Missouri, just east of the Missouri-Kansas state line, approximately a half mile southwest of the intersection of South Central City Road and 32nd Street. At 5:34, eyewitnesses and storm chasers reported multiple vortices rotating around apparent circulation. Here, the tornadoes downed several large trees at EF0 intensity. Civil defense sirens sounded in Joplin 20 minutes before the tornado struck, in response to a warning issued at 5:17 for northwestern Newton and southern Jasper counties in Missouri. This tornado was large, deadly, and devastating. And a lot of the residents did not heed the warning of or sirens. So a lot of them didn't know because I'm pretty sure what it was near the time of this happening, people were graduating or very close to graduating because May, that's like you're about to get out of school, man. Like I know I'm graduating very soon, but in late May, you're probably gonna be graduating. You'll have people graduating and they die. Hopefully they at least got to graduate before they passed, but I'd assume they would, because assuming how late the tornado happened. This tornado was a part of a larger late May sequence of tornadic activity. The extremely violent tornado began just west of Joplin at 5:34. It quickly reached a peak width of nearly a mile as it racked through the southern part of the city, before impacting rural Jasper and Newton counties, and dissipating 48 minutes later at 6:12 p.m. The tornado was on the ground for a total of 21 and a half miles. Overall, the tornado killed 158 people, including 8 direct indirect deaths, and injured 1,100 other people, making it the deadliest tornado of 2011. And it ranks as the deadliest tornado in Missouri, as well as being one of the deadliest in the United States. since the Glazer Woodward F5 tornado in Texas and Oklahoma in 1947, and the seventh deadliest overall in the U.S., and was the first F5 tornado to occur in Missouri since May of 1957, and was only the third tornado to strike Joplin since May of 1971. Now let's talk about a couple tornadoes that controversially did not get their EF5 rating. And I'll explain a little bit more about that as we go. First, we're going to talk about a recent tornado. I say somewhat recent because it happened about 4 years ago. It'll be 4 years in December. I'm talking about the Western Kentucky tornado, aka the Mayfield, Kentucky tornado, or simply the Beast. Now, that in itself is already scary. It's called the Beast. So, you know, this tornado was not fooling around. Now, I actually watched a documentary on this where the survivors of the Mayfield tornado talked about how, like, there was a Christmas play going on because it was so close to Christmas. I'm not going to read you everything I put on here, but I'll give you a general gist of what happened. The National Weather Service issued a tornado emergency for Mayfield at 9:26 p.m. So this was pretty late at night. The massive wedge tornado approached the town from the southwest. As the tornado entered Mayfield, it regained EF4 intensities, and numerous homes along Cardinal Road were damaged or destroyed. Houses were leveled or swept from their foundations. Again, trees in the area were debarked and denuded. Cars were thrown and mobile homes were destroyed. The EF4 damage continued after it passed Mayfield Bypass, US 45 Bypass I-69, where Mayfield Consumer Products, a candle factory where approximately 100 workers were working, was flattened. The large metal framed warehouse had building collapsed, trapping employees and resulting in 8 deaths and numerous injuries. Allegedly, workers' jobs were threatened if they left the factory. So they were threatened with their jobs for wanting to survive? That's crazy. Hold on a second. They were being threatened with their jobs, mind you, if they wanted to leave. Me? I don't care. I'm leaving. I want to live. I like being alive. Anyways, at 9 p.m., nearby industrial businesses were destroyed and damaged, while semi-trucks and other industrial vehicles were thrown and destroyed. After briefly weakening to EF3 intensity, it intensified again, reaching just below high-end EF4 as it moved along US 45 and tore through the center of Mayfield, resulting in widespread catastrophic damage throughout the historic downtown square that was listed on the National Register of Historic Places for its classic and late Victorian and classical revival architecture. Most of the structures in downtown Mayfield were heavily damaged or destroyed, including large, well-built, multi-story brick buildings that collapsed. Only large piles of bricks and lumber remained in the hardest portions of the city, and streets were left buried under debris. The Graves County Courthouse had much of its roof torn off, clock tower collapsed, and several restaurants were destroyed. Many other businesses in downtown Mayfield were destroyed. Large metal silos were crumpled and heavily damaged at a granary. The large Mayfield water tower was toppled and destroyed. The post office, city hall, fire station, and police station were damaged or destroyed. 3 large churches were destroyed too in downtown Mayfield, including the First Presbyterian Church, a large, well-built brick structure that was mostly leveled. The domed roof and upper walls of the First Christian Church collapsed, as did the sanctuary of the First United Methodist Church, which was constructed with very thick masonry exterior walls. A school bus garage, a metal industrial buildings, and apartment buildings in other parts of the town were damaged and destroyed. Now, this storm, I believe it only killed 24, I'd say only, but it killed 24 people. The tornadoes The tornado's peak winds were at 188 miles per hour. Now, yes, wind speed wise, that isn't EF5 because EF5 is 201 plus. But arguably, you could argue if you see the pictures, look up Mayfield tornado damage, and you'll see. And tell me you wouldn't have given that EF5 rating. Now, if you do see it, please comment why down below. But we're gonna move on to Mayflower Valonia EF4. During on during the evening hours of April 27th, 2014, a large and destructive high-end EF4 tornado moved through several communities northwest of Little Rock. It was a part of a larger outbreak of severe weather across the central and southern United States, devastating towns of Perrin, Mayflower, Lake Conway, Valonia, and El Paso. No, El Paso, not Texas. This was in Arkansas. I was confused too, killing 16 people and injuring over 100 more. The tornado retained peak wind speeds of 190, so a little bit stronger than Mayfield, but same rating. I mean, considering you'd have to get 201 for EF5. Both storms were bad, don't get me wrong, but the Mayflower Valonia tornado was a little bit worse in terms of wind speed. It moved through the town of Valonia. 8 people were killed in it, in Valonia. The tornado was on the ground for almost an hour. I believe the Mayfield tornado was only like 30 minutes. So the Mayfield tornado was a little longer, but we're going to move on since I already said we're moving on from that tornado. But I'll probably use it as references for the other ones to compare. It had traveled a total of 41 miles along its path with a peak width of 3/4 of a mile. Tornado touched down in the western edge of Pulaski County, moving to the northwest before impacting Perrin at EF3 intensity, killing 3 people and damaging several residential buildings as it moved by. It reached EF4 intensity for the first time as it entered the city limits of Mayflower. The tornado produced heavy structural damage as it tore through the southern edge of the town, killing 3 people. It would later hit Valonia, killing 10 people. On here it said 8, but maybe it was officially 10. It dissipated a short time later. Now, let's talk about some controversy. I know I gave my opinions on both of these tornadoes. If I didn't, then I will just give it a second. The final rating of the tornado was a source of controversy, and the NWS office in Little Rock noted that if this tornado occurred prior to the EF scale, Enhanced Fujita scale, in 2007, it would have been rated as an EF5. So both the Mayfield and Valonia storms were a little bit too late to that Fujita scale party. Mayfield being the most recent, so the farthest away. It was revealed that almost every home in Valonia lacked anchor bolts and were anchored with cut nails instead. The new scale accounts for homes that use cut nails instead of anchor bolts, which do not provide resistance against violent tornadoes. An EF4 rating was based on this as well. On January 23rd, 2025, Anthony W. Liza with the NSS, or National Severe Storms Lab, along with Harold Brooks and Mackenzie Croca with the University of Oklahoma School of Meteorology, published a paper about it. And thing, it should have been an EF5. But it wasn't, so I'll explain really how it doesn't matter what the rating is, in my opinion. El Reno, if you don't already know about El Reno, it was extremely large, powerful, but erratic. Erratic. I am so sorry. I did not mean to say that. That occurred over rural areas of central Oklahoma during the evening hours of Friday, May 31st, 2013. It was a rain-wrapped multi-vortex tornado and was the widest ever recorded and was part of a larger weather system that produced dozens of tornadoes over the preceding days. The tornado touched down at 6:03 Central Daylight Time at about 8.3 miles southwest of El Reno, rapidly growing in size and becoming more violent as it tracked through portions of Canadian County. It was over mostly open terrain. The tornado didn't affect a lot of structures, but weather radars revealed extreme winds in excess of 313 miles per hour. This is the highest observed wind speed on Earth, just about. It's just slightly lower than the 1999 Bridge Creek Moore tornado. It had grown to a record-breaking width of 2.6 miles, beating the previous record set in 2004. It killed 4 storm chasers with Twistex, the Twistex team, which I will talk about right now. Twistex scientist and engineer Tim Samaras, along with his son Paul and research partner Carl Young, died in the tornado. Samaras and Young were ejected from their Chevrolet Cobalt by the storm's sub-vortex, while Tim was still buckled into the passenger seat. A local resident named Richard Henderson decided to follow the storm, lost his life in the same area. Mike Bettis of the Weather Channel was injured and had their vehicles damaged. A Dow-based analysis of how the tornado impacted these teams revealed they were hit by an intense sub-vortex. The tornado was responsible for 8 deaths. I guess half of those were the Twistex team, and 151 injuries due to the ferocity and sheer size, as well as its irregular movement and deaths linked with this tornado. It became one of the most infamous tornadoes ever. The NWS referred to the tornado as the most dangerous tornado in storm observing history. Let's talk about Tuscaloosa, Alabama. During the early afternoon and evening hours of April 27, 2011, a violent, deadly, and destructive high-end EF4, commonly known as either the Tuscaloosa-Birmingham tornado or Tuscaloosa tornado, devastated portions of Tuscaloosa and Birmingham, Alabama, as well as similar communities and rural areas between the two. It is one of the costliest tornadoes on record and one of 367 tornadoes during the 2011 super outbreak, the largest tornado outbreak in United States history. It touched down at about 4:43 with it reached a maximum path width of 1.5 miles when it crossed I-65 north of Birmingham, attaining winds of 190. It's one of the most documented tornadoes of the entire super outbreak due to it being super close to Tuscaloosa and Birmingham. Conditions were really good for it, and it was among the most conducive to violent tornadoes ever documented. I'm not going to talk about how it got set up because I'm sure you could find videos where it talks about that. I just want to get straight to what you would have seen if you were living there and you saw this. This is a particularly dangerous. Oh, sorry, hang on. This is a particularly dangerous situation. Destructive tornadoes, large hail to 4 inches in diameter, thunderstorm wind gusts to 80 miles an hour, and dangerous lightning are possible in these areas. It was a PDS. I don't know if they officially gave it a PDS, but I would have. A PDS means particularly dangerous situation. Now that you have all this information, why do you think these storms didn't get F5s? Now, here's my opinion on it. It doesn't matter what it was rated. And arguing over it is stupid, and it's not going to change the fact that it happened. It doesn't change that people died. So yes, the storms should really be looked at objectively, but it's not that big of a deal. It's not going to bring back the dead, so is it really going to matter that it doesn't get F5 status? Really, do you really think you're going to lose sleep thinking, "Oh, this tornado didn't get F5 status. Oh my gosh, I'm going to crash out over it." No. Yes, it was sad, and yes, you should really take into consideration what happened, But are you really gonna lose sleep over it not being an F5? Now I could see maybe if it was like a family member arguing of the victim, maybe I could see it. But you and I, we had no personal connections, as far as I know. If you do, please say otherwise in the comments. I apologize for that. Alright, so let's move to our actually spooky story. The City Beneath a Lake. This takes place in Georgia. Let's go to Oscarville, Georgia, real fast. Oscarville is a ghost town in Forsyth County, Georgia. Oscarville, a majority black town, was most famous for being a central location for a series of violent crimes and racially motivated riots that happened back in 1912, driving away black residents of Forsyth County. In 1950, the remnants of the town were flooded during the construction of Lake Lanier. The site is located in northwestern Forsyth County, close to a border with Hall County. Oscarville was formed post-Reconstruction. Oscarville was an agricultural community. A large number of people that were black were a large number of people that lived there were black. Not everybody, but a lot. And many of these residents had achieved higher economic growth than other black communities. They had been freed from slavery after fighting in the Civil War. In 1911, Oscarville had 1,100 residents, 58 of whom owned land. In the months preceding the 1912 conflicts, racial tensions in the area remained high from the 1906 Atlanta race riot. Several white farmers were under economic stress, which they blamed black landowners. Several months prior to the events at Oscarville, a dispute between a black guy and a white girl at a peach orchard in nearby Plainville had turned into an attempted lynching of several black men. Black residents of Plainville resisted, and the situation escalated into a shootout, which had resulted in the death of a white sheriff from Plainville. Now, that's crazy already. Now, the reason why this is an actual spooky story is they drowned the city out. So it's a ghost town now. I'm sure you could probably find something from there. And if you do, please tell me about it in the comments. I would love to know about it. Because another thing besides weather, I clearly enjoy is history. So I enjoy learning about anything historical. Information on the 1912 conflicts can be difficult to find due to a lack of available records. Now, I'm going to be talking about a group called the Night Riders. There was a woman named May Crow. She was abused and then murdered. On the day of her funeral, groups of white individuals naming themselves Night Riders carried out attacks where whites on horseback would use the cover of night to descend on the black communities of Forsyth County and with the intention of inflicting damage and injury. Because of the short amount of time between the attacks on Ellen Grice, who was also abused and murdered, white locals believed that a black insurrection was causing a spree of non-family friendly behavior in Oscarville. Firebombs were thrown into the local church, which was a community hub for Oscarville, similarly other communities at the time. Many of the night riotings involved arson. These attacks happened for several months. Many residents died in this event. And so that's already crazy enough. So think about it like this. Just because you free and now you're being attacked because of the way you look. That's crazy. Local legends allege Lake Lanier to be haunted. One commonly claimed reason for the supposed haunting is the high number of drowning deaths, with over 500 deaths between the lake's formation in 2021. 200 deaths occurred during this time period of 1994 and 2020. Underwater debris such as trees and buildings contribute to the drowning rate. Another commonly cited reason for the supposed haunting is that several cemeteries were not relocated before the flooding. As of 2023, they're still at the bottom of the lake. Now, there let's talk about the 80s real fast. Forsyth County were in a lot of Forsyth County were enforced as white only until as recently as the 80s. Some white children growing up in Forsyth County were raised with the explanation that white residents of Forsyth had driven out all the black residents in order to protect the county's white women. In 2019, Forsyth County's population remained 3.6%. Now, in January of 1987, a civil rights march called the Brotherhood March took place in Forsyth County, led by Jose Williams. Locals and other white counter protesters are reported to have thrown rocks. Oprah, who was still early in her television career, went there to cover the demonstration. Now, this is pretty controversial because it's still locally famous in the communities surrounding Lake Lanier. Through word of mouth, the town have evolved into local legend of a haunted town at Oscarville. The author Patrick Phillips had grown up with white anti-segregationalist parents as a white guy still in Forsyth County. Now we're gonna wrap it up real fast, talk about one last tornado. I know you guys are probably getting tired of me talking about tornadoes, but I mean, weather's just something I'm very passionate about. And if you want me to talk about weather, I'm down for it. I might create a secret channel where I can just talk about weather all I want or something like that. I don't know. Let me know what y'all want to talk about. In the afternoon of May 10th, 2008, a large and violent tornado moved through eastern Oklahoma and western Missouri, striking the communities of Pitcher, Quapaw, Racine, and Granby. 21 people were killed and over 300 were injured. The tornado produced damage that would later receive an EF4 rating. Now, this tornado actually had hit a zinc mine, causing toxic air to come out the mines, deeming this city unlivable. So it would become an unincorporated community, and Native Americans would help try to rebuild the city, but it was just too much for them to deal with. This was the deadliest tornado in Oklahoma. Sorry, 21 people were killed in the tornado. Fatalities took place in Pitcher, where 6 were killed. Newton and Barry counties, where 15 were killed. One other person was killed in Jasper from an EF1. 8 victims died inside their car. And basically, so this was very deadly. It was the deadliest since. Oh, come on, where'd it go? I'm sorry. I guess I really should have done better with this. This was the deadliest tornado in Oklahoma since the South Oklahoma City F5 tornado back in 1999, which killed 36. But most of the fatalities in Missouri were reported near the Rackney community at the intersection of Route 43 and Iris Road, northwest of Neosho, where automobiles were thrown as far as half a mile. 20 people were hospitalized in Newton County, and it continued eastward through Granby, Missouri, where it passed very close to the intersection of US 60 and Route 59. It destroyed a church building and numerous homes and buildings as it passed through. The tornado continued southeastward, and crossed Route B about a mile south of Granby. No reported storm deaths were reported in surrounding areas with Granby. Troops were sent to help, and again, Native Americans came and helped the people out because I mean, that was I don't know. Anyways, this was a very bad tornado. The city would be considered a ghost town by 2015. And This preliminary rating gave it an EF3, I believe it was. A YouTuber called June1st made a really good video about this storm, so go check him out if you'd like. Thank you guys so much for hanging around this awesome year. I really appreciate it. My History of Hurricanes video has about 20 views as of writing this. My rock and roll promo had blown up to 45 amazing viewers. So thank you for looking at that. On behalf of Dylan, thank you for watching Forgotten by Time. Goodbye.